Hey, friends, and welcome to Heartful Beings, where we bring loving, grounded, and practical perspectives to living a heart-centered life with Janet Uribe and Milena Rodriguez.
This is the place where we will explore all things spiritual with an open heart while keeping our feet on the ground. We share experiences, bring in special guests, and have open-hearted conversations about all things spiritual.
If you are new or open to expansion, spiritual principles, and universal truths, then we may be kindred spirits.
All we ask is that you take what resonates, nourish your soul, and just leave the rest behind.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to our podcast, Heartful Beings, with myself, Janet Uribe, and the beautiful Milena Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, hey. It's really early morning for us. We had a lot of little hiccups and things happening. And for this episode today, the topic is, when you question. And like for both of us, I had woken up kind of early, was a little groggy. I'm not a morning person. Okay. And Milena texted me and she's like, hey, listen, I think that was a little adventurous for us to say that we were going to meet at this hour. Can we delay a little bit? I was like, yeah, of course. I have a meeting right after. And then we're like, oh, well, don't worry. Then we won't record, but we'll still meet because of my meeting. But the universe has other plans sometimes, guys.
Yep.
Because we both wanted to record more than anything. So this happens to me all the time. People are like shocked that it happens in my life. But when I want something, it happens. And I'll sometimes have clients cancel so that things can happen. And so in cues, Milena, let's go further, Milena. Let's give some more explanation about what we're getting at.
Yeah. So, we make plans and then we just got to learn how to go with the flow, right? Old me would have been stressed out. Like I committed, I got to hurry up. I got to do this, but I've been giving myself more grace and compassion, primarily because I'm pregnant right now. So I don't just have a toddler. I am pregnant, starting a business or enhancing my business and starting a podcast. So really giving myself grace and compassion for when things go not according to plan has been such an amazing learning lesson for me. It just makes everything go easier. And then when Janet was like, oh, well, my 9 o'clock or with the next hour canceled, I was like, well, perfect. Now the universe just opened the door and now we have the space. So we're bringing this up as we kind of lead into When You Question, because even before we sat down to record this, me and her were both experiencing this weird like energy shift. And we're like, what is this? I feel a little strange. And given the work that we've done up to this point, we know to start questioning that. Okay, what is this about? Instead of old programming would have been like, oh, I'm not feeling well. I'm sick. And I start going maybe into a spiral of like a negative. This is more of like a curiosity, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to pull a card. I haven't pulled a card for our meetings in a long time. And this is a card that comes from Elena Fairchild's Earth Warriors deck. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck. So I just want to give a shout out to her and her work because I love using this deck. And the card that came out was Kanyini, and it's in each other we find ourselves, which was beautiful because it was all about the collective and like our purpose and connection and relationships and community. And so as we were discussing, when we start to question, it was kind of a natural progression of our last episode and when we're coming out of rock bottom. When you're starting to come out of the rock bottom place, we question everything in our lives. We're like, none of this makes sense. Like everything was just chaotic. I'm coming out a little bit. I'm seeing a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, but now what? And so what really struck me in this card was how we find relationship within ourselves. Like sometimes we have to disconnect from the exterior world, go inwards and start developing that relationship with self, but also finding the balance. Because if you're also feeling like you do need community, finding the people that are on your level, are on your frequency, that enhance you and don't tear you down. So Janet, do you want to elaborate on that?
Oh, girl, I love that. That's the transition. Yeah. So part of the reason we start questioning to begin with, right, is because we've been given all of the programming, the indoctrinations, the learning, if you touch a hot stove, you'll burn. Yet there are people who walk on hot fire coals. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's these incredible dichotomies that exist within the belief systems. And so one of the things that, like, when she pulled that card, I was so entranced because it was beautiful. It had like, we'll post this to the social media. So
100%. Yeah.
But it had basically the representation of land animal, of water animal, of human, of ancestors, of air animal, and then all encompassed into one place. So when we looked up the Kanyini and I think its origins were Australian, right? Aboriginal.
I believe so. Yeah.
And so it also explained that we have this responsibility and unconditional love for all of creation. So as empaths and intuitives, sometimes we'll sit there and we'll have this responsibility and unconditional love to all others, right?
Mm-hmm.
But exactly what Milena said, we'll forget to give ourselves that
Yeah.
unconditional love and that unconditional grace. And when you do, you'll actually take that questioning into places that may not be beneficial or may not have higher wisdom for you, like questioning yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really cool because when you think about this, we all come in kind of hyper intuitive, right? Like we come in with abilities and based off of, I guess, various lifetimes of work that we've done and various backgrounds we have energetically as souls, we come in. But what ends up happening is in the home, the mother, the father, or the caretaker, whoever your caretaker may have been, it may have been a grandparent and a family, an extended family, or your community, your teachers, your mentors, your, within the church, there's this role of there's a superiority role, a mentor role, a teacher role, and I tell you when, I tell you how, I tell you how much, right? And so that being the case, we kind of start to lose trust in ourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we start to question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a balance to this everything. I also tell you question everything because you're learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, what is your inner truth?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is
It's
your
interesting because we've been so programmed to reach for an ideal or to reach for a version of ourselves that we desire, right? And I think that there's a healthy way of viewing that no matter what, because I also want the best version of myself to shine through. However, when we are not our best versions of ourselves, that is ourselves too. Like we can't deny that part. And so when we are starting to question everything, it's really take a moment and go within and kind of sort through that before we start changing the exterior. Because I think if we start changing the exterior without doing some of the self-reflection, we're putting band-aids.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then the icky feeling does come back every time, and sometimes tenfold.
Oh gosh, I
Yeah.
love it because I think Esther Hicks or someone, she's real cute when she says it repeatedly. Like you try to go ahead and change the exterior, or you move, or you flee, or you cross the country, right? I'm moving to Portugal, but you take yourself with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it, guys. I'm leaving, I'm moving. I moved to California and then I moved to Texas. I'm originally from the New Orleans area. And then I thought, I'm gonna change my life. And I did. I changed so many things about my life. But you know what? Who that person was that I was when I left was still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it can feel, questioning yourself or questioning things, questioning the current space and reality that you're in, questioning the job that you're currently in, questioning the relationship that you're currently in, questioning all of these things can feel like a really lonely time.
Yeah.
And then it also can create a lot of doubt. So what ends up happening when you're in this loneliness or in this place of doubt, you start to get really hungry and thirsty. So to kind of spice things up, you might make some choices that might not feel like, oh, that might not have been the best choice, but really those choices that either come with like new routines and practices to develop the self, or the choices that come with like, you know what, I'm going to create some fires and create a lot more chaos in my life. Both serve purpose.
Yeah.
Both serve purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like when you've been in that rock bottom place or in the really low place, and then you come into this, I'm going to start questioning everything. When we learn how to go within, we can find an anchor, even when the world's burning all around you, is when we find the ability of just being able to sit with self and to be happy. And happy might even be the wrong word, but just being able to sit with yourself with less judgment, with more compassion, with more grace, and just kind of observing the exterior, you can find that anchor, even if it's just for a few moments in the day, because sometimes our days, we're putting out fires everywhere and everything is crashing and burning and nothing has gone right. And you just are like, what the hell's going on? Finding that anchor can sometimes hit a reset.
What does your anchor look like, Milena, to give examples?
Baths by myself with the door closed, a bath. Sometimes I think we mentioned even yesterday or in the podcast before this, being alone in the car.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just me as I'm putting my daughter to sleep and I'm sitting in the chair of just closing my eyes and being present within, just even for 30 seconds. If I have the time to go 30 minutes, awesome, but if I have just 30 seconds, that's sometimes even just enough to hit the reset.
Yeah. For me, the anchor can look like a course of action.
Mm-hmm.
So it can just be like identifying where I'm uncomfortable and how it doesn't resonate.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be something as simple as doing a dish or baking cookies. You've heard me talk about baked cookies. Or sometimes, my neighbors who can totally see into my backyard will see me just laying out, like spread out like an angel, almost doing snow angels in the grass. And then it's funny, I came in the other day and my partner was like, why is there dirt in the bed? I was like, oh, listen, I don't really want to talk about all the things that I brought into our bed. I have practices that you don't know about. But yeah, the anchoring yourself can look like a place of neutrality. The anchoring yourself can actually look like a variety of things. For me, one thing that we did, we had this moment right before we were getting on, and it felt like a zoom, like a zoom in and a zoom out. And I had to go grab this like nice soft blanket that was next to us, because when I touch textures, it helps ground me. It helps me identify, okay, this texture is hot, or this texture is soft, this texture is. And so when you start asking those types of questions about your your reality, right? And I'm touching things, for those of you who can't see, I'm touching a plant right now, I'm touching a pillow in my environment. And you ask yourself, what is this like? You start to ground yourself back in the body, and you really start to be able to identify the physical reality that you're in right now, and give your attention to something else that's perhaps not the spiral, or perhaps not like the panic that we can sometimes hit when we're sitting there questioning ourselves or questioning a scenario.
100%. Before we got on this call, when we felt that shift in energy, I just had to take a moment. You were doing your thing with the blanket, and I just had to sit here and just stare outside at this beautiful plant I have and just connect just for a second. And then I was like, okay, I feel good. I kind of came back to the body. I cleared out the energy a little bit. I felt more grounded. These little practices, y'all, it's seconds sometimes. So if we're always like, we don't have time to do this, I don't know how to incorporate this into my life. You just start small. One thing. What is one thing that you just know is your anchor? Like, you are already doing it. I promise you, there's something in your life that you've already been doing that you just haven't associated with, oh, that's my reset. That's my grounded, that's my present moment. Because we get really hyped up on these ideas that it has to be a big ceremony or it has to be something big. And I love ceremony, and I do love having a whole meditation hour if I can fit it in my day, with incense and the music and the dim lights. And I love that. But in reality, as moms, as parents, as we work, we come home, there's house things, wherever you can find it counts.
Yeah. And friends, I spend most of my day on Zoom, like the majority of my day on Zoom. I was just joking with Milena. I was like, I haven't buttoned my pants for any of our episodes so far. You hear me? It's just all hanging out, because that's where we are right now. No judgment. But because I'm on Zoom, what do you have, start doing things like petting, let me cuddle this pillow. So and I have these ADHD tendencies. So I will usually have a fidget. Have you guys ever seen people that just have fidgets? Mm-hmm. There is truth behind touching things, feeling them, being able to connect to another fractal of life that you can literally just feel, connect to. It helps ground you. It helps bring you to that moment. Yeah. So guys, everyone has the capacity to do this to some degree, using some type of, what would you say this, like a tool or a material. So yes, agreed, 1000%. And then I'm always giggling too, because when Milena sounds so calm. Okay. Milena's I get nervous that we're a little, I'm scrambling and this, but even when she's scrambling, she looks calm. When I'm scrambling, my whole family is oh my God, watch out. She's fucking lost it again. Oh my God. And
maybe I got to work how to scramble some more and get some of that out.
And so I'm laughing because lately, okay, this is new for me. I've just been God just takes care of it. Just takes care of it. I have about 80 to 90 different kids on my schedule a week. And somehow if I'm gonna be sick that day, like the universe has all these parents cancel. And I'm like, that's weird.
It's so okay. Yeah. The week we decided, Janet, to sit down and start getting to work on this podcast, I had no client schedule. I was like, look at that. Like, this is the week. This is when we start, because my schedule is actually clear, completely
Yeah.
clear. You get me, you can have me like 5 days of the week. And let's talk about that. It's like, once I started accepting and acknowledging that I was getting assistance from the other side, from our spirit guides, it's so fun, y'all. Like, and I say y'all because yes, I'm from the South. I'm from New Orleans. So I do say y'all a lot. um, everything just opens up. Like, whenever I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get to everything today that I had on my schedule? All of a sudden, things cancel, things get moved, things get rescheduled. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I don't even have to do that thing today. And then I'm fine.
Heck yeah.
And that's
And
not
then,
all the time, but yeah, it's
yeah.
fun when it happens.
And then like, I don't know, I'm going to share this. My dialogue to make this happen is usually very authentic. I feel like sometimes we're programmed to like, okay, get in your Zen space and then start placing your orders and this. But guys, God knows I'm feisty and spicy and a lot. So I will oftentimes be like, look, we all know that I tend to spiral. This is very well known to you and I. So I'm going to tell you to just help me with my calendar at all times.
Yeah.
So what's cool is like yesterday I had to text parents like we're due to meet. And what's fascinating is like I like to walk sometimes in the morning, and my, I'm mostly single mom. I have a partner, but he's got a busy schedule too. So I feel like a lot of times I'm single momming, trying to figure stuff out. And so all these clients I texted all scheduled back to back, right? On the same day, so that I can still have the rest of my week to do this podcast, to do all these other things. And I'm just doing it with the intention of, listen, we know that I like to do these things. Help me out. Show me the way. Show me how I can do this. And then it is.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I question it, because that is the topic we're talking about. When I question, oh shit, guys, it just blows up. It doesn't go so smooth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen, like we can't be in that zone, in that flow 24/7. But when we hit that flow, acknowledging it and being like, oh, I like this, enhances it. So remembering that too, for me, when it is a shit day and things aren't going that way, finding my anchor really helps. But when I'm in flow, acknowledging like that was movement, that I got things done. I felt good doing it, helps that scenario.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Acknowledgement. That's a huge thing. That's something that I'm often coached on myself, is that I'm not giving myself enough credit.
Yes.
Just had a conversation with a client 2 nights ago that was also like, she's like, it's melting, it's this, it's that, da, da, da. And I was like, but girl, you've been doing it. At the same time, you're doing it. You're mastering this. You're knocking it out the park. But we have this tendency, again, to question ourselves. Because our own parents didn't do a certain level of work, or some of our mentors or teachers hadn't done a certain work, and they're functioning from not enough, or they're functioning from not worthy, and so it gets projected to us, so the cycle continues.
Yeah.
So the greatest responsibility, if we're talking about this Kanyini card, the greatest responsibility that we can have is unconditional love for all creation. Do not leave yourself out of that.
Yeah, because when you read that, it goes to the exterior. But when I was reading and feeling into the energy of the card even more, it was like, hold up, that is very important, but it starts within first. So if we don't have a relationship with ourselves, or showing compassion, true compassion for ourselves and grace, how are we going to give it to others?
Yeah. The Unu, right? That's what they called it in the card, the Unu.
Yeah. That was like another, I think, African tribe that had their own version of the Kanyini. And it was a beautiful quote. It was something along the lines of, there are no true orphans when you have relationship.
Yeah.
And so if we can even teach children at a young age to believe in themselves, feel empowered, to learn how to go within, to find quiet time, not be so the feel the need to be externally stimulated 24/7, to enhance relationship with self, man, those kids will grow up feeling real anchored, real strong, and God knows what they'll be capable of doing, and it all starts from the questioning of where we're at now in society. because a lot more people are coming to me. I'm getting a lot of clients that are questioning. They're at forks in the road. They're at these places where they're going to a new transition in life. And those are also big scenarios when the questioning really starts to get amped up, or you have a death, and they want to connect so badly with their ancestor, their deceased loved one, because they don't know what to do with this loss and this pain. So when you're going through transitions, that questioning really comes up. I mean, the pandemic, that's when I quit my career for the second time. Was in the middle of a global pandemic, because the questioning got so big with like thousands, maybe millions of us. There was this questioning of like, is this how I want my life to be right now? And again, it comes without the judgment of where you came from. So let's talk about when you're lonely. Like, the questioning can be really lonely.
Yeah.
So you're working on yourself, you're doing all this work for yourself, but some of us, that feels weird, as we talked about before, like when you're doing something new, it can be uncomfortable. So then how do we deal with the loneliness aspect of it?
Oh my gosh. And then, especially if you have what I'll call like what would you call this? It's an attachment style, almost like a dependent attachment style.
Yeah.
Like with your kids or with your partners or with your friends.
Yeah.
By the way, I can speak about it.
Yeah. It becomes like an identity, right?
Because I've been that. And I
Yeah.
still have elements of it in my life now that I'm working on. The avoidance of self. Because sometimes in my questioning process, as I've been developing more, I start to have these abilities and remember other abilities. And I start to kind of creep out like, wait, why am I creeping out about my abilities? They're my abilities. Oh, because the external told me that they're weird.
Yes.
The external told me, you're not like us. You're like an alien. You're not like the rest of our kids. Something's off with you. So someone tells you something enough, you start to believe it, especially as a child.
Yeah.
So rewiring that, guys, and really finding that loneliness, like using the loneliness that you feel, knowing that you're gaining something in it too. Because sometimes when I do this work, I feel lonely. I do. It's a natural human emotion to feel. It's a predicament. But I just don't give all of my power over to that word when I find myself in those moments. I just recognize it as a predicament of the moment. And that in that moment, I am creating greater depth and understanding for myself and greater depth and power for myself so that I can practice something like Kenyini to share with others.
And that's beautifully said, because that was the energy of the card that was just coming out at me just now. And they're like, don't forget to mention this. And you just ended that way, was once we do the questioning within, then you're ready to be of service to the rest. And then you can show up more fully, more authentically who you are from that transition that you've just went through, right? Or you're still going through at that point. Because at that point, then, like the card says, and each other we find ourselves. Once we know more of who we are and we've gone more within, then you can find even more of yourself in relationships. Absolutely. But I really think it's so important to go in first.
Absolutely. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's almost like it, and I feel like this episode could be elaborated. We say that last time too, by the way. There's like 8 episodes in here. And like for me, in each other, we find ourselves, like we also find the mirror.
Yes.
Right. And this is just a concept I'm going to introduce for those of you who are newer to this spirituality. But for those of you who are, what we would call it, seasoned, you'll know it. But mirroring, you can never see something. Now listen to that. You can never see something in another human being, good or bad, that does not exist within you. Yeah. Good or bad.
And that used to piss me off in the beginning. I'll tell you that, guys. I had a hard time really grasping that, because, especially when you're looking at the worst of somebody.
Oh yeah.
That's the hardest. But then when I really sat with it, I was like, okay, I can see that statement.
Yeah, I was pissed. I was resistant to it. I would tell my mentor, I could feel it just coming in, like in my neck, and being like, that's not who
Anger.
I am. Holy cow, I was pissed. Yeah, I agree. I love that you said that.
Yeah, I was so angry.
But once I started to do more of the work and understand how the dichotomy is within all of us and how we have skewed perceptions of things, and I could really start to integrate it, really own it, then I started to make more peace with, oh, and then that also explained a lot about why I love the villain and the saint, guys. I really do. Like if one of you ever were to befriend me somehow and you come to tell me your mama drama or your best friend drama or the he did, she did drama, I'm probably going to love you, but I'm going to love the other person too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into that because they had a role to play on how awesome you become.
Yeah. Yeah.
So funny.
So the questioning, it's such a part of another very, I mean, everyone's situation will always be different of what led to the questioning, but it's also a very relatable human experience that we're all here to experience multiple
Heck
times in our
yeah.
life, multiple times. Because even in the spiritual world, you know, there's what I thought I wanted to be literally a year ago. And to who I am now, I had to do some questioning in the middle of that. What resonates with me now at this point? What doesn't resonate with me? What do I need to release? What worked for me? But now I'm just not, you know, I'm not jiving with it. I'm not feeling it. So, like, how do I make that transition? And then when I got to a place of having less judgment on myself, less perfectionism, let's talk about perfectionism of like ideals and stuff, it becomes easier.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
say that and I hope the universe doesn't have a big one for me soon. But you know, there's some that are always going to be easier, there's some that are going to be harder. It's just the way, you know, it's meant to be. But the least amount of judgment I have on it, the more in flow I surrender to being, and the more I'm just allowing things to kind of play out the way they have to play out without having to control it. And then going within with the questioning, I think has been just a game changer.
I love it. And
Yeah.
guys, that even that process looks so different for everyone. For me, there's a lot of punching and screaming on the front end. And then
Mm-hmm.
somewhere eventually I decide to raise my white flag. And then I'm like, oh,
Tears, lots of
wait.
tears.
Yeah. And then I'll transition out of the victim mode. Yeah. And then once I've done all of those pieces, then I'm ready. And then sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, I'm not in control of the show.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to put my energy there.
Yep. I'm just going to watch the chaos as an observer.
Yeah, it's so different.
It's
And then
so
there's
different.
evolutions of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And same thing, you know, for those of you who might be new to the path, might be new to your curriculum, or we're all on the curriculum, but if you're new to like consciously walking it, okay, and you say yes to growth, you know, watch out. Because the second you say yes to growth, shit starts exploding because you don't grow in smooth waters. You don't become the navigator and
Yeah.
the ultimate sailor in smooth waters.
Yeah.
You do so in some massive freaking waves and some gentle waves, and there's a vacillation between the two. But yeah, when you do say yes to the conscious growth, oftentimes it came from a questioning to begin with. So when you do say yes, you don't have to question as much. You can trust
Mm-hmm.
in the process, and that's a whole different level of surrender that the universe will prepare you for,
Mm-hmm.
step by step. You don't even have to question how.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and I love saying, ask me how I know.
Yeah. And the last little bit message that's coming forth for some of you, you're like, okay, cool. This all sounds good, or this doesn't sound good, whatever, wherever you're at with what we've kind of presented here today. But you are doing the questioning, you're coming out of like, who am I? What's going on? Who do I want to be? And what do I want, that we talked about in the last episode, but you're still really lonely. What do you do? Like, because sometimes you can feel really lonely within your marriage, you know, partnership. You can feel lonely within your family, because that's usually where you're first going to start getting some push and pull from people who are like, what's going on? She's got really weird, or she's disappeared. Are you okay? And or then people start trying to control and like fix you and help you. I totally recommend finding the mentor, the teacher, the community, that at least you can have a little bit of an outlet to not feel like such a weirdo, because that's where I came from, a place where I didn't feel like anybody would accept me if I said all of a sudden I am learning about, because I started learning with angels specifically and working with my mentor at the time. I talk to angels now. And then I turned into like, I'm a medium now. And it took me like a lot of inner work before I was able to step into that in my external environment, to where I felt safe enough and more in my own power with that, you know? So if you're in that beginning place, there are communities. And now with online everything and Zoom, there's like and y'all can hit us up. We got referrals too. or you can work with us. But community really helped me find my voice, find what resonated. And not every community was the same. So you shop around, just like I've always told people, it's hard to find a good therapist. And you shop around until you find the person that you really click with. Same thing with all of these things. Like, you just take what resonates.
Yeah. And even in that friendship you take, or relationship or dynamic, you take what resonates. Yeah. Yeah. You nourish your body, nourish your mind, nourish your soul with what is for you. For sure. Oh, dang girl, you did good. I feel like we need to make a tips list for loneliness based off of
Yeah, maybe we'll do that
okay.
and put it on the website, little freebies, because we do want to start doing some of that stuff for you guys.
Yeah, so we'll have that up for you for sure. But listen, friends, I think that's a good place for us to stop now, because otherwise we could keep going, and we will on another episode. But for now, love you guys so much. Have a beautiful day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
If you liked what you heard today and want to see more about our offerings and gifts, please join our email list at heartfulbeings.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Heartful Beings.
Please note that all of our perspectives and views of the following content are ours and aren't necessarily a substitute to our holistic views and approaches to healing. Both of us believe in the numerous support tools available to all, which include and are not limited to therapy, mental health treatment, medical prescription, and other types of traditional or alternative healthcare.